Hey everyone, welcome back to the Living in Maryland channel where we discuss all things living here in the great state of Maryland. So today we are discussing the top things that you need to be aware of so you can know if you can handle living here in the state of Maryland. All right, so the first thing I want to jump into here is types of HVAC. So first off, I'm going to jump into heat pumps. So heat pumps is something that we have a lot here in Maryland. If the home is on all electric and it's got typical kind of forced air, it's going to always be a heat pump. And this is just something you want to be aware of because it is a drier type of heat. So in our first house, we had natural gas heat. It burned hotter, so it was easier to heat the home in the winter. And it was more of, it just wasn't as dry of a heat. Now the home that we're in currently is a heat pump, so it's still forced air. It's all electric, so that can be good too, especially with the cost of gas going up. But it is a drier heat. It doesn't burn as hot, so it's a little harder to heat that home in the winter. So something to kind of be aware of. I definitely noticed the last couple winters it gets a little drier. Kind of the eyes are get a little drier, hands, things like that. So if you are someone that does not handle dry heat very well, that's something you want to be aware of because it can be something that's fairly noticeable. And then also to piggyback on that is a different style of heating is going to be your baseboard heat. So sometimes people don't like this, especially if it's tied to oil. It can be a little more expensive to heat the home. You got to fill up that oil tank multiple times a year, and prices are not as affordable when it comes to oil. So you got two types of baseboard heat. You've got your electric baseboard heat, and then you've got oil, which is hot water baseboard heat. So if you see a home that's built before 1970 and it's got baseboards, it's probably going to be the hot water type of baseboard heat via oil for the source. So something you want to look into. If it's an older home, there's definitely a higher chance that you're going to run into that baseboard style of heat. So just kind of determining how you feel about that. If that's something that you can handle or not, that's something that you're definitely going to see. Now, I will say when it comes to heat, about 50% of the homes, that's kind of my best guess, 50-50 is going to be all electric homes where you're going to see those heat pumps. And then you do see a decent amount of natural gas, but there are a lot of communities out here that just don't have natural gas to them for whatever reason. So you're gonna see a lot of that all electric. You're gonna have that drier style heat. So just something to be prepared for so that you know what you're walking into. Okay, next is a big one, and it's gonna be taxes. So when you are living in Maryland, we are pretty much taxed all the way around, every which way. So that's something that you wanna be prepared for depending on which state that you are coming from. There's a few that I'm gonna hit on here specifically though. I'm gonna hit on income taxes, property taxes, and sales tax. So sales tax real quick, because that's an easy one, 6%. Across the board, no matter what county you live in, what area you're in, you're gonna see a 6% sales tax outside of like your groceries, milk, eggs, meat, things like that at the grocery store. But everything else is going to be subject to that flat 6% sales tax across the board in Maryland. Next is property taxes. So property taxes, the rate itself is not terrible here in Maryland. You're looking at mostly, especially within Central Maryland, 1.25, 1.25% on the resale value of the property is something that you can expect. So if you're looking at a $500,000 home, you're normally looking around $5,700. Between $5,700 and $6,000 a year for the annual property taxes. So the rate itself is not terrible, but with the values continuing to climb and having climbed so much over the last decade or so, the taxes are starting to feel like a lot, especially depending on that price point that you're in. So once you start getting north of 500,000, it starts to add up quickly. So definitely something, that quick calculation is something that you can kind of utilize if you're looking at homes online and trying to really verify and hone in on exactly what the property taxes are going to be. So that's property taxes. When it comes to income taxes, so this is something that you want to be aware of and prepared for as well. So income taxes are broken down into two parts here in Maryland. So you've got the state income tax. So that's going to be anyone making up to $100,000 or the first $100,000 of earned income is going to be 4.75% at the state level. Once you jump over that, the rate jumps to 5.25%. So something you want to be prepared for there. And then piggybacking on top of that is going to be the local tax that you pay based on the county you live in. Now, this pretty much throughout Central Maryland, so Baltimore down to DC, is going to be pretty much 3.2%. So you're going to have to combine those two. Now you got Baltimore City, Baltimore County, You've got Howard County, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County all at 3.2%. I know Anne Arundel County is a little less. I forget the exact rate off the top of my head, but I think it's high twos, maybe 2.8, 2.9, somewhere in there. So there's every county has some sort of local tax. We can just look that up depending on the exact county you want to be in. But most counties within Central Maryland, you want to plan on 3.2% on top of the state income tax at the state level. Now you pay that all once, so a lot of times it's hard to even recognize that you're paying those in two different ways because it's just all paid together. But it is dependent on the county you live in for the local, and then the income driven side as far as the state tax. So definitely something you want to be prepared for and be aware of what the tax situation looks like for you before you make your move here to Maryland. All right, next thing that you want to be prepared for is the bugs here in Maryland, especially in the summertime. Now, we are coming off of this summer here in 2023. It's been I think, one of the worst summers in the last several years. So hopefully it won't be this bad, but the mosquitoes this year were just all over the place. So that's something that you want to be prepared for. Screened in porches are very popular out here just to kind of provide that aspect of having the outdoor living, but not having to deal with the bugs that come with living here in Maryland. So that's something that you want to look into, and something that a lot of people do out here. Now, if you are not a fan of bugs, you don't want to walk into an unfinished basement here in Maryland. You're going to see a lot of stink bugs. You're going to see camel crickets, things like that. It just comes with the territory. So if it's a finished basement, then you don't need to worry. It's probably going to be trapped behind the drywall. So something to be prepared for when it comes to the bugs here in Maryland. You are going to experience that a lot, especially in the summertime. When the spring and fall come, it's going to be much less, but in the summertime, you definitely want to be prepared to have your bug spray and be prepared for that coming. All right, next is that most of Central Maryland is pretty developed. So if you are someone who is looking for new construction property, if you really want a brand new home, there will be some opportunity for that, but there's not a ton. If you are someone who's looking for a lot of land, that might be a little hard to come by too in most of Central Maryland, just because, almost all of the area is pretty much developed. So there are some parts in Frederick, Western Howard County, where you do see some opportunity for some development, for some land and things like that. But a lot of Central Maryland is going to be pretty much built out. So if that's an opportunity that you're looking for specific to new homes, specific to land, there are some opportunities, but there's not a ton just because of how developed most of Central Maryland already is. So something to be aware of before you make your move here, depending on exactly what type of living situation you are looking for. All right, next thing that you want to be prepared for is the weather and what to expect when it comes to that. So the thing that I would prepare most people for is just how cold it can get in the winters. Overall though, our seasons are pretty moderate. Like our last winter, we didn't even get a snow. This summer has been kind of up and down when it comes to the heat. So we've had plenty of, low to mid 90-degree days, but we've also had plenty of, high 70s into the 80s days during the summer. So today we are sitting in middle of September. We're going to peak out around 75. Our low last night was about 56. So we've had a few cooler nights too. So it can really be all over the place when it comes to the weather, but you do want to be prepared for the cold in the winter, especially come January 1. We can easily have a lot of nights that drop into the teens, low 20s. But again, the amount of snow that we get is definitely, a toss up when it comes to that each year. So there are some years where we get, a handful of snowstorms. There's some years like last year where we didn't get any at all. So just being prepared for weather to be all over the place is something that's, best to be prepared for and plan for when it comes to that. All right, next is the overall cost of living here in Central Maryland, especially and specific to detached homes. So this is something you want to be prepared for. Just as an example, with a couple counties within Central Maryland. So within Howard County, you've probably got a median home sales price when it comes to detached single-family homes of around $600,000. Within Montgomery County, it's going to be even higher than that when it comes to detached homes. Now, the good part about this is that Maryland does have a lot of different types of housing. So you've got a lot of condo options, senior communities as well as non-senior communities. You've got a ton of townhomes within Maryland. So when it comes to that, there are some options to make housing more affordable. Whereas I know in parts of Southern California that I lived before, you really didn't see a whole lot of that. You had plenty of towns, plenty of zip codes where it was almost all single family homes and there just wasn't really any other option. So when it comes to diversity of housing, options of housing. Maryland does have a ton of that where it can make it more affordable. But if you are really zeroing in on detached single family living, then doing further research on price points, on zip codes, so you can get an idea of exactly what that looks like, because the prices have been climbing, continue to climb as we speak when it comes to that. So being prepared for that as well. So, all right, guys, that's everything I got for you today. If you ever have any real estate questions, if you're looking to buy or sell a home here in the state of Maryland, we absolutely love helping out in any way possible. Feel free to reach out however you feel most comfortable, and we will see you at the next video.